When you look at the Indian rupee right now, it's like watching two completely different movies at the same time. In one movie, you've got this incredible story of macroeconomic optimism, a booming India, an economic renaissance, really. But in the other movie, it's a story of deep, personal financial pain, with so many people feeling like their savings are just being wiped out.
And this quote, wow, it just captures that pain perfectly. This comes from a professional, a computer science grad from a top-tier school, who basically feels that because they chose to stay and build a life in India, their wealth has been chopped in half on the world stage. It really gets to the heart of the frustration a lot of people are feeling.
And here are the cold hard numbers behind that feeling. Just 15 years ago, a single US dollar would get you about 40 rupees. Today, it's knocking on the door of 90. I mean, that is a massive drop in value, and it's right at the core of this personal financial crisis. So let's dig into that side of the story first.
Right, so this is the story from the individual's point of view. This is where the falling rupee isn't some abstract number on a screen, but a very, very real crisis that hits your savings, your ability to buy things, and your plans for the future.
So what's really driving all this pessimism? Well, it kind of boils down to a few big worries. People are asking, is India buying way more than it's selling to the world? Is there some kind of hidden inflation that's secretly eating away at our savings? Is that whole Make in India push actually delivering the goods? Are high taxes just crippling the middle class? And is the economy really slowing down?
And this right here highlights a huge disconnect. The official story is that inflation is pretty much under control, right where the central bank wants it. But for a lot of people, the reality on the street is completely different. The actual cost of putting a roof over your head or just buying groceries has gone through the roof, and it makes those official numbers feel, well, a little out of touch.
But, even in this really pessimistic take, there is a nod to one big bright spot, India's services sector. We're talking about IT services, software, all those global call centers. It's an absolute powerhouse for India's exports and brings in a ton of foreign currency. So the big takeaway from this side of the argument is a serious loss of faith. The feeling is that India's central bank is actually letting the rupee get weaker on purpose. Now, our country might do that to make its exports cheaper for the rest of the world, but if you're an individual saving money, the conclusion is this pretty dramatic call to action. If you want to protect your wealth, you've got to get it out of rupees and into US dollars. But that's only one side of the coin. Okay, now let's just completely flip the script. Let's zoom out to the 30,000-foot view, the macroeconomic level. From up here, the picture isn't a crisis at all. It's what some are calling an economic renaissance. This is a story of huge reforms, massive investments, and a country really trying to position itself as a global economic heavyweight. So remember that argument we just heard that Make in India isn't working? Well, this data here tells a very different story. What this chart shows is a slow but very steady climb in the share of more advanced high-tech goods in India's total exports. It suggests that shift towards more sophisticated manufacturing is actually happening.
A huge driver behind that manufacturing push is this policy, the Production Linked Incentive, or PLI scheme. The idea is actually pretty simple. Think of it like this. The more stuff you build in India, the bigger the check the government writes you. It's a massive financial carrot to convince companies to set up their factories on Indian soil.
And that carrot seems to be attracting some serious money. Take semiconductors, the brains inside all our electronics. This number, almost $19 billion, is the investment that's been announced for just 10 new semiconductor facilities in India. That's a huge bet on the future of high-tech manufacturing. And the investment story doesn't stop there. Let's talk about the cloud. This number, $42.5 billion, is what American tech giants are planning to spend on data centers in India in a single year. This is the physical backbone of the digital economy being built at an incredible speed. And here is the government's grand ambition. The big goal is for manufacturing to make up almost a quarter of the entire Indian economy. Now, this isn't just a small tweak. This is a fundamental, strategic shift to try and turn India into a global production hub.
So is all this talk translating into real money coming into the country? This chart suggests? Absolutely. We're looking at foreign direct investment here, which isn't just hot money flying around the stock market. This is long-term cash used to build actual factories and businesses. And it more than doubled in the first half of the fiscal year. That really reinforces that feeling of macroeconomic confidence.
Okay, so we have two incredibly powerful and completely contradictory narratives. How are professional forecasters supposed to make sense of this? What do they actually think is going to happen to the rupee when it's being pulled in two different directions? This slide sums up the whole puzzle perfectly.
On one side, you have all these headwinds trying to push the rupee down. Things like potential U.S. tariffs, that trade deficit we talked about, and money flowing out. But then on the other side, you've got these powerful tailwinds propping it up. That strong FDI we just saw, ongoing economic reforms, and pretty resilient growth.
So where do the experts land? This is fascinating because there's no clear agreement. You have major banks like Bank of America and ING predicting the rupee will actually get stronger, getting back into the high 80s by the end of 2026. But then you have some AI-driven models predicting the exact opposite, that the weakness will continue with the rupee sliding all the way down to 93.
So what's the big takeaway from all these different forecasts? Well, it seems like while everyone sees the pressure the rupee is under right now, the big banks are essentially betting on the comeback story. They believe those powerful macroeconomic tailwinds are eventually going to win out, and the rupee will recover some of its lost ground.
All right, let's try to bring this all together. We've seen the view from the ground, we've seen the view from 30,000 feet. So what's the real story here, and why does this tension matter so much for understanding where India is headed?
Here's the bottom line. The Indian rupee is stuck in the middle of a giant tug-of-war between two opposing forces. You've got this massive top-down story of reform, investment, and big-picture growth. And at the exact same time, you have an equally powerful bottom-up story of individual pain, inflation, and frustration. And frankly, the entire future of the currency, and maybe the economy itself, depends on which of these two stories ends up being the dominant one.
And that really leaves us with this final massive question. Will all the big-picture economic reforms and the billions of dollars in investment be enough to lift the entire economy and eventually strengthen the currency? Or will those on-the-ground realities of inflation and eroding purchasing power create pressures that end up derailing the whole growth story? The answer to that is going to define the next chapter for the Indian rupee.